Welcome to the Engerati studio. I'm Rose Bundock and I'm joined now by Iain Stewart, Practice Partner for Utilities and Smart Cities at Teradata. Welcome, Iain.
Hello,
Thank
good
you for
afternoon.
joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We're going to focus our conversation around data, analytics, obviously the subject very close to Teradata's heart.
Indeed.
I suppose the data story has changed quite a bit in the past few years. As you mentioned off air at this event, in the way people see the value of data and DSOs are handling data. I mean, from your perspective, what changes have you seen?
Yeah, I've been working in this role now, or a similar role, for the past 4 years, and coming to this event, obviously to talk about data specifically. 4 years ago, when I first came, I would suggest that there was a lot of hype and a lot of ambition around what a lot of utilities were looking to do with data. Since then, there's been a journey, an evolution, I would say. Some very good things have happened, some maybe not so good things have happened, but I think the hype has now definitely died down. Conversations around data are much more targeted, and utilities are generally more informed in terms of what they're doing. They're focused on specific business areas, things like asset management, things like bringing in capabilities from other retail industries that are very mature with data and analytics. And they're focused much more on the business outcomes than they are on using data as a tool and looking for technologies to work with that data as maybe they were previously. So there's definitely been a maturity since I got involved in this area specifically.
Perhaps we can break our conversation down and look at data collection and handling, then analytics, and then use cases.
Sure.
From that collection and handling, are we seeing a lot of improvements in the cleaning of the data, getting more value from the data?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, there are three levels of, I would say, the data preparation that leads up to any analytics taking place, and that's the area where typically a lot of analytics projects fall down. In fact, it's not necessarily the analytics themselves, it's the pre-preparation. The data quality needs to be good enough, and I think there is an understanding now, particularly in the asset data that's available, around the level of quality you need in order to do something clever there. I think the ingestion and the way that data can be taken and integrated with other data sets, again, that's definitely improving. We're seeing capabilities from people like ourselves and others in order to work with that data and get it into a state where it can be analysed. That area has definitely come along, and I think there is definitely a willingness to adopt an ecosystem approach to the management of data in that integration layer. So people like ourselves who can analyse the data, working with people that actually collect the data or have it in a business as usual context potentially. That landscape is becoming much more established, and people are much more willing to work together to get it to a place where people can use it as well.
I know you have different approaches to analysing the data. You have an output approach, and you also have discovery, where the data is producing its own results.
Yes. The new data science. Yeah.
The new data science, which is, I believe, a strong part of your acquisition of Bright Thinking. Is that right?
Yes, I think Big is the brand you're referring to on the consultancy side. Yeah, so originally Teradata was very focused on traditional data warehousing. That's still a very core part of what we do in utilities, and also much more widely, in fact. We purchased an American company called Think Big Analytics to bring in some of that new capability on the data science side, working with some of the open source technologies. And in addition to taking those capabilities on board, we've also used it as a means internally and externally to set up a consulting organisation to talk about use cases in terms of what can be done with the data, and also how to architect data and internal solutions in order to be able to run those analytics.
I think it's fairly well assumed now that there is no value in data unless you're asking the right question of it. Yeah. How can DSOs make sure they are asking the right questions to get the outcome that they actually want?
Yeah, so I think specifically on the DSO side of things, I mean, Teradata got into utilities 7 or 8 years ago, I suggest, based on an explosion of data from things such as smart meters and wider sensoring. That wasn't the only industry that we invested in, so we were also looking at things like oil and gas, transportation, automotive, for example, and other asset industries with very similar data types. So the key from all of this is that there are example use cases you can take from utilities who've done stuff recently, and also from all of those other asset industries as well, specifically in 4 areas. So asset performance optimization in terms of how the assets are operated and how you can optimize the yield whilst minimizing the impact on the assets. Asset maintenance is a very, very strong theme in utilities and those other sectors as well. Supply chain optimization, so how do you manage and utilize people, internal and external, different parts, different suppliers, for example. And then also the new build asset planning is a 4th area that we've seen progress in across those asset-based industries. So I think for the distribution utilities, also transmission and generation across those asset parts of the business, my advice would be come and talk to people like ourselves who've actually done that work already, and we can show you the proof points and give you an idea on where to focus the analytics.
I know you gave a presentation yesterday and you talked about Discovery, the data science service that you offer, and you had a question, what's the likelihood of success from that? Is it going to tell me something I didn't know, or is it going to reinforce something I did know? What was your response to that?
Yeah, so what I said, in the vast majority of cases, you will, again, assuming that you've done the homework up front and you've picked a good solid use case and a good solid data foundation to do the work on, your chances are definitely greater than 50%, I would say, in terms of discovering something interesting in that data that you may not have looked for previously. Asset maintenance I touched upon, that's an area of focus for us where that type of analytics has uncovered some very interesting things already in 1 or 2 clients that we've worked with. What I would say is that the way that we run that discovery is it's designed to be quick. Okay, it's not a long-term strategic project where you spend a lot of effort and potentially a lot of cash on not finding anything if indeed the analytics don't uncover something new. We have this idea of fail fast, so you run those analytic projects incrementally very, very quickly, so if you don't find anything you can move on. So the time to value, if you like, is only half of that equation. If you execute and you're in the right mode there in terms of how you go about it, it's definitely very, very fruitful in terms of the returns you can get.
And what's the response been like to using data science, AI, with operational data or business data?
Yeah, it's definitely more and more core to what we do, especially in those asset parts of the utilities value chain. I mean, traditionally we did a lot in the retail side of utilities up front and also in distribution. Most of that work was in the advanced analytics space based on data warehousing technology. I would say as part of that evolution we discussed earlier on, people now understand where Discovery fits and what type of data to use there. They understand that time series data, for example, where you have that data for large periods where you've not used it before, they understand that that's something which Discovery is very, very useful for, because it gives you a way of bringing that data to life in a way that might not have been possible in a more traditional environment. So it's definitely something which is taking up more and more of our time with customers, practically in terms of what we do, and definitely in terms of a way to get people new to analytics going. It's a very good option because, again, obviously you've got this accelerated project concept, where you can test things out quickly and you can really get into the guts of what's possible with data.
You've obviously got some pretty smart data people working within the company. What innovation are we seeing within data science that could benefit utilities in time?
Yeah, so I think the integration in terms of the capabilities is the blending of the underlying analytics that I talked about. So the 3 parts we've done historically are the integration, advanced analytics, and the discovery we've just talked about. And they've not quite been on separate platforms, but they kind of have been discussed and operated separately. What we're seeing is a merging of those 3 capabilities, and then based on that you can share the outputs of those 3 capabilities across a Teradata ecosystem, which is part of a wider ecosystem, which then also helps other things such as AI and these other things, which can leverage the kind of central data capabilities that we're talking about there. So I think the closer integration and the mix that brings to the market, that's the headline change I would see again since I got into this 3 or 4 years ago.
A final question, Ian, that does lead on to my final question. We reflected on at the beginning about the journey that data's been on, the story. Mm-hmm. This time next year, where do you expect the story to have gone?
Well, I think more of the same actually. So I would expect the maturity in terms of the discovery analytics to have moved on a stage further, and for there to be more proof points there. I think a lot of the capabilities around advanced analytics are quite well understood, and I think they're becoming more business as usual. So I think they've worked out how to use both sets of analytics to do what it is they need to do. The next stage is really monetizing the outputs, especially on that discovery side of things.
Great, thank you.
Thank you very
much. Look forward to seeing you next year.
Indeed, thank you.
Thank you for joining us in the Engerati studio. You can watch plenty more of our videos on our YouTube channel. Goodbye for now.